Have you ever been told that you should forgive someone who hurt you? But the very thought of it felt like a betrayal of your own pain. We are taught that forgiveness is a noble, selfless act, a gift you give to the other person. But what if that is a dangerous lie? What if true forgiveness is the most profoundly selfish act you can perform? What if it has nothing to do with them and everything to do with setting yourself free? Let me say something that may shock you. You do not have to forgive them. The pressure to offer a cheap, premature forgiveness is a form of spiritual bypassing that denies your reality. Authentic forgiveness is not a sweet sentiment. It is a gritty, internal alchemical process of taking back your power. It's not about saying, what you did was okay. It's about saying, what you did will no longer have the power to consume my life. For years, I carried a resentment that felt like a burning coal in my hand. I thought my anger was my power, my way of holding the other person accountable. But I eventually realized I wasn't punishing them. I was only burning myself. In our time together today, we will deconstruct the myth of forgiveness. This is an essential act of shadow work. We will explore the prison of resentment and the psychic chain that binds you to the past. The true goal of forgiveness, reclaiming your own precious energy, and a practical 4-step path to this radical act of self-liberation. This is not a moral lecture. This is a key to the prison cell you may not have even realized you were living in.
Before we can find the key to our freedom, we must first understand the architecture of our prison. The prison of resentment is not built of stone and steel. It is built of stories, myths we have been told about forgiveness that are so deeply ingrained in our culture, we mistake them for sacred truths. The first myth, and the most damaging, is that forgiveness means condoning. This is the story that tells us if we forgive someone, we are somehow saying that what they did was acceptable, that it didn't hurt that much, that we are letting them off the hook. And so we hold on to our anger, our resentment, because it feels like the only way to honor the reality of our pain. It feels like the only way to hold the other person accountable. To not forgive becomes an act of justice. But as we will see, this is a profound and tragic misunderstanding. The second myth is that forgiveness requires reconciliation. This is the story that says if you truly forgive someone, you must let them back into your life in the same way they were before. You must trust them again. You must open your heart to them again. This is an incredibly dangerous myth, especially for those who have been deeply betrayed or abused. It forces a false choice: either live with the poison of resentment forever, or re-expose yourself to the source of the poison. It leaves no room for the wisdom of a healthy, protective boundary. The third myth is the old cliché, forgive and forget. This story tells us that if you still remember the pain, if the scar still aches from time to time, then you haven't truly forgiven. This is a form of psychological torture. Our brains are wired to remember threats to our survival. To forget a deep betrayal is not a sign of spiritual enlightenment. It is a sign of a neurological problem. This myth creates a cycle of shame, where we judge ourselves for the natural functioning of our own memory. And the fourth myth is that forgiveness is a moral duty. This is the story that tells us we are a bad person, an unspiritual person, if we cannot find it in our hearts to forgive. We are shamed into offering what is called cheap grace, a premature, inauthentic forgiveness that is spoken with the lips, but not felt in the soul. We say the words, "I forgive you," not because we are free, but because we are trying to achieve the persona of a good or evolved person. This is the ultimate collapse of the achievement-based mindset into the spiritual realm. It turns the sacred, alchemical process of healing into just another item on the ego's to-do list. These myths create the bars of our prison. They keep us trapped in a hopeless bind, feeling guilty for our resentment, but feeling like a traitor to ourselves if we let it go. So what is the truth? If these stories are false, what is the real nature of the chain we are carrying? From a Jungian and psychological perspective, resentment is not a feeling. It is an activity. It is the act of reliving a past wound over and over and over again in your mind. It is a grim ritual of psychic time travel where you constantly return to the scene of the crime. You replay the words, you re-feel the betrayal. You keep the emotional wound open and bleeding long after the person who inflicted it has moved on. I lived in this prison for years after a deep betrayal by a friend. My mind became a courtroom where I was both the prosecutor and the judge, and my friend was perpetually on trial. I would spend hours presenting evidence, making my case, finding him guilty again and again. I thought this activity was serving me. I thought my righteous anger was my power. I thought that by keeping the trial going, I was somehow holding him accountable. But he wasn't in the courtroom. He was out living his life. The only person in the prison was me. This is the great, tragic secret of resentment. It creates a profound and powerful psychic chain that binds you, not them. When you hold on to resentment, you are giving the person who hurt you free rent in the most valuable real estate you own, your mind. You allow their ghost to follow you, to sit with you at dinner, to lie with you in bed at night. You are leaking your precious, finite life force energy into a black hole of the past. The unconscious belief driving this is, if I keep feeling this pain, if I keep the story of my grievance alive, I am proving how much they hurt me. My suffering is the evidence. But your suffering is not punishing them. It is only and ever punishing you. As the famous saying goes, holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Pause here. Think of one resentment you are holding. How much of your energy, your thought, your emotion, does it consume each day? Just notice the cost. To understand this is to move to the edge of a profound reframing. It is to realize that the entire conversation around forgiveness has been pointed in the wrong direction. We have been asking the wrong question. The question is not, do they deserve my forgiveness? The real question, the only question that matters for your freedom, is, do I deserve to be free? And that shift changes everything.
To ask, do I deserve to be free, is to change the entire game. It shifts the focus away from the other person, their actions, their apologies, their deservingness, and it places the spotlight exactly where it belongs. Back on you, back on your life, back on your own precious, finite energy. This is the great reframing. This is the heart of the matter. The true goal of authentic forgiveness is not to absolve the other person. That is the business of the universe, of karma, of God. Whatever you believe in, that is not your job. Your job is to heal yourself. Therefore, the true goal of forgiveness is to reclaim your psychic energy. Imagine your life force, your soul's energy, is a finite resource. Let's say you are given 100 units of this energy each day. When you are living in the present, you can invest that energy into your work, your relationships, your creativity, your joy. But when you are holding on to a resentment, a significant portion of that energy, 10, 20, maybe even 50 units, is automatically diverted. It is siphoned away to fuel the prison of the past. It fuels the mental courtroom where you retry the case. It fuels the emotional storm of anger and grief that you relive. It fuels the physical tension in your body as you brace against the memory of the wound. This is why resentment is so exhausting. You are trying to live a full life on a depleted energetic budget. You are leaking your life force into a hole that can never be filled. Authentic forgiveness, then, is not an interpersonal transaction, it is an intrapsychic process. It is the conscious, courageous act of plugging that energy leak. It is the decision to stop investing your precious, present-moment energy into the bankrupt account of the past. It is not about saying, what you did is okay. It is about saying, what you did will no longer have the power to feed on my life today. It is not about letting them off the hook. It is about taking yourself off the hook they have been living on inside of you. I carried the burning coal of my resentment for years. I thought my constant anger was a shield, a sign that I was strong and would not be hurt again. But in truth, I was living in a self-imposed hell. My thoughts were obsessive, my body was tense, my relationships were strained, because a part of my heart was always occupied by the ghost of the person who had hurt me. The moment of liberation came not when they apologized, they never did, but when I finally, truly understood the cost. I realized that in my attempt to hold them accountable, I had given them the ultimate power, the power to dictate my inner state long after they were gone. My resentment was not a shield, it was a chain, and I was the only one with the key. Authentic forgiveness is canceling a debt, but it is not the debt they owe you, it is the debt you have been trying to make them pay, a debt they will likely never acknowledge, and certainly never repay in a way that could actually heal your wound. So you make a choice. For the sake of your own freedom, for the sake of your own sanity, you cancel the debt. You declare the account closed, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to stop being the debt collector. Because you are tired of spending your life force banging on a door that will never open. Pause here and really feel into this. Imagine the energy you spend on your resentment. If you could have that energy back, right now, what would you invest it in? Your creativity? Your children? Your peace? Share that one word in the comments. Let's name the future we are trying to reclaim. This reframing moves forgiveness from the realm of morality to the realm of psychological hygiene. It is no longer about being a good person. It is about being a free person. It is the ultimate act of taking responsibility, not for what happened to you, but for how you choose to carry it from this day forward. This is a profound and challenging part of shadow work, because it requires us to face the part of ourselves that has, in some strange way, become attached to the grievance. The part of our identity that has become the one who was wronged. Letting go of the resentment sometimes feels like letting go of a part of who we are. But it is only by letting go of that wounded identity that we can step into a more whole and powerful one. The one who is not defined by their wounds, but by their resilience. The one who is not a prisoner of their past, but the architect of their future. So, when we understand this, when we realize that forgiveness is the key to our own prison cell, the question is no longer, should I forgive? The question becomes, how? How do we perform this sacred internal surgery? What are the steps to cutting the psychic chain and finally, truly, setting ourselves free?
This act of self-liberation is not a single magical event. It is a process, a conscious, often difficult, and profoundly sacred journey. It is not about flipping a switch, it is about walking a path. And that path has 4 clear, essential steps. This is not a linear process. You may revisit these steps many times.
but this is the map. The first step is acknowledge the full debt. Feel the pain. You cannot let go of what you have not first fully held. The pressure to offer a premature spiritual forgiveness is a violence against your own soul. It asks you to bypass your legitimate pain. The first step of authentic forgiveness is to do the opposite. You must give yourself full permission to feel the entirety of the wound without judgment. You must allow yourself to be angry, to feel the grief, to acknowledge the betrayal. This is the work of honoring your inner child's experience. You are finally giving that wounded part of you the witness it never had. You are saying to it, "I see your pain. It was real. It was unjust. And you have every right to feel the way you do." This step is not about wallowing. It is about validating. You are creating a safe container to finally honor the truth of what happened. The second step is recognize the cost of resentment. Once you have honored your pain, you must then, with clear eyes, assess the price you are paying to hold on to the story of that pain. This is an act of the wise adult. Take out a journal and make an honest inventory. What is this resentment costing you? Is it costing you your peace of mind? Your physical health? Is it stealing your joy in the present moment? Is it poisoning your current relationships? How much of your precious daily energy is being consumed by this ghost from the past? Be specific. Be honest. You are not doing this to shame yourself. You are doing this to motivate yourself. You are making the cost of staying in prison so undeniably clear that the desire for freedom becomes your primary motivation. This leads to the third and most pivotal step, the conscious choice. This is the turning point. This is the moment of alchemy. Having honored your pain and having recognized the cost of holding on to it, you now make a conscious, internal declaration. This is not for them. This is a sacred vow you make to yourself. You can do this as a ritual. Light a candle. Sit in silence. You can write it in a letter to yourself that you then burn. The words may be simple. For the sake of my own freedom and my own peace, I am now choosing to release my energetic attachment to this person and this event. The debt is canceled. I take my energy back. You may have to do this 100 times. That's okay. Each time you make the conscious choice, you are loosening the chain. You are rewiring your own brain. You are declaring to the universe and to your own soul that your freedom is more important than your grievance. And this brings us to the fourth and final step, set a boundary. This is where we confront the great myth. Forgiveness does not equal reconciliation. Let me say that again. Forgiveness does not, under any circumstances, require you to trust the person who hurt you or to let them back into your life in the same capacity. The first 3 steps were an internal process. This fourth step is an external action. It is the act of your wise adult self protecting your now honored inner child. Having cut the internal energetic cord, you must now decide, based on their behavior, not their words, what level of contact, if any, is healthy for you now. For some, this might mean a conversation where you establish new rules of engagement. For others, it might mean creating significant distance. For some, especially in cases of abuse, it might mean no contact at all. A boundary is not a punishment. It is an act of profound self-respect. You are not trying to control them. You are taking control of what you allow into your own kingdom. You have finally built a wall for your house. This 4-step path is the essence of this difficult shadow work. And there is one final, often overlooked forgiveness required on this journey. And that is the act of forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself for not knowing better at the time. Forgiving yourself for not leaving sooner. Forgiving yourself for not protecting yourself more fiercely. Forgiving yourself for the mistakes you made when you were operating from your own wound. This is the ultimate act of self-compassion. It is the moment you stop being at war with your own history. You accept your story, all of it, as the curriculum your soul needed. And you finally come home to yourself, free.
Today, we have walked into the heart of one of life's most difficult territories, and we have found not a moral commandment, but a key to our own freedom. We have dismantled the toxic myths of forgiveness that have kept so many of us trapped in a prison of guilt and resentment. We have learned that the pressure to offer a false, premature forgiveness is a betrayal of our own soul. We have reframed the entire conversation. We have seen that the prison of resentment is a self-imposed one, fueled by the mistaken belief that our suffering is punishing the person who hurt us. This is the vital insight of this profound shadow work. And we have discovered the true goal of authentic forgiveness. It is not to absolve them. It is to reclaim our own precious psychic energy. It is an act of radical self-preservation. And finally, we have been given a clear, four-step path to this liberation. A path that honors our pain, calculates the cost, makes a conscious choice, and sets a wise boundary. A path that culminates in the ultimate act of grace, forgiving ourselves. To forgive, in this deep Jungian sense, is not to forget what happened. It is to remember it, to honor the wound, and to choose consciously that you will no longer allow that memory to be the landlord of your inner world. You are evicting the ghost of the past. You are taking back your home. This is not a one-time event. It is a practice. You may have to cut the chain 1,000 times. That is the work. But each time you make that conscious choice, you get a little freer. The air gets a little lighter, and the energy you reclaim can now be invested in building the life you truly want, the future you truly deserve. As we cut these psychic chains to the past and reclaim this vast amount of energy, a new question often arises. How do we now invest this newfound freedom, this newfound life force? This question often brings us face to face with our deepest, most unconscious beliefs about our own worthiness, our own value, and our own abundance. What is your relationship with money? Is it a source of stress, of scarcity, of shame? What if your money story, like your forgiveness story, is not what you think it is? That is the deep psychological excavation we will begin together in our next conversation. For this week, your work is not to forgive anyone. Your work is simply to conduct an inventory. I invite you to a small act of courageous honesty. Take a moment and identify just one resentment, big or small, that you are carrying. In a journal or just in your mind, write down the rent it's charging you, the cost to your peace, the cost to your joy, the cost to your energy. You don't have to do anything about it yet. Just see the price. Seeing the price clearly is the first step toward deciding you are no longer willing to pay it. To affirm your readiness to begin this journey of liberation, I invite you to share one word in the comments below that describes the freedom you are seeking on the other side of this resentment. Peace, lightness, power, wholeness. Let us name the freedom we are now choosing to reclaim. The trial is over. Your life is waiting.